Welcome gallery staff and councillors to our July ordinary meeting. I'll open the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing cultural connections to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Mr General Manager, could you read the prayer, please?
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our Richmond Valley community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, and to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Item 3, there is no public access and we have no apologies. Page 6, item 5.1 is my mayoral minute, and I'll move that if I can get a seconder, please.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, it's a bit of a sad time. After 120 years, the auxiliary, through lack of numbers, will cease. Over their time, they have raised over $1 million, and I think that's conservative estimate for the benefit of our community. There is a list of items that they have supplied to the hospital, and I won't read that extensive list, but we'll say that anyone who has needed medical assistance or visited the casino hospital would have had benefit over the years from these items. I'll just read the last part of the report. As I said, unfortunately, due to lack of numbers, the members of the auxiliary have recently held their last meeting. The commitment and dedication of auxiliary members, both past and present, are very much appreciated, and I particularly thank Robin Spruce, who has served on the executive for the past 2 decades, both as Secretary and President, Deborah James, who has served as Treasurer, and Barbara Thorley, who has done a wonderful job as Secretary. I would also make special mention of Mrs Jean Rutley, who served for 35 years as Supervisor of the hospital kiosk. Upon Jean's retirement, Barbara Thorley fulfilled this role. And I also recognise 40-year service badge recipients Nola King and Marge Glasby. On behalf of our community, we thank them and wish them all the best for their future. Is there any other speakers? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillors, you've been supplied with a supplementary agenda item, a mayoral minute, and I will move that if I can get a seconder, please.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Council, this is an update on the Northern Rivers flood recovery. I will read the recommendation because those people viewing out there not have a copy of this online. So the recommendation is that Council notes the recent advocacy efforts of the Mayor and General Manager on behalf of our community to seek a more equitable allocation of funding and support of the Richmond Valley and across the whole Northern Rivers region, and agrees for the Mayor to write to the Premier, the Minister for Emergency Services and the Minister for Planning to highlight the priorities for residents impacted by floods across the Richmond Valley. And 3, seeks a meeting with the CEO of the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority to discuss how Council and the NSWRA can work together to speed up flood recovery and achieve our community's vision set out in our Richmond Valley 2040 Community Strategic Plan. Councillors, recently the General Manager and I met with the 2 ministers that visit our area, which is in the report later, and when you meet new ministers, they really haven't got an understanding of what's happened in our region post-flood. Everyone can show them the photos and that, but this council's got a very, very good story to tell, and in the report it lays that out. And recently at the meeting with the Premier, I did advocate very strongly that local government should be involved more in the recovery process. And he did give the undertaking that will occur in the reset, and I look forward to that occurring. We are at the coalface with our community. We deal with them week in, week out. We understand their hurts and their pains and their sorrow, what they'd like to be, and just at present our community isn't where they should be. At the rally the other week, there was a feeling that the Richmond Valley has been left behind compared to a couple of other areas, and I understand their frustrations. And I think we need, this looks like a bit of a pat on the back for council, but as I said, it's what we have achieved, and the previous council were a part of that. They realised where we'd come from and what we'd done, and we led the way in a lot of the flood recovery, and this is just to let them know where our story. So if I can get anyone else would like to speak?
Yep, I'd like to. Rob?
Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, look, this minute goes a long way to letting the community know where we're up to with our flood recovery program and what we've done in the past. But it relates a lot to item 14.1 in the business paper today, and I'm intending to change the recommendation to include something along the lines, and you've basically written it here for us by presenting us with this, so we'll work on that when we get to it. I can't believe, that we've gone from the day we sat in the Sly shed down there with Perito, right through, we've gone through Perito, Witherton, Draper, Minnis, Scully, and now Dibbs, isn't it? Is that the way it's working? And none of them are taken on board, nothing's happened, and now we're back to square one, basically. So someone needs to take it on board and run the show. Whether local government's the right, the right avenue to go to get it pushed any further along, I don't know, but at least we can try, and I think we have to. There's been some comments in the media lately that we're so far behind Lismore in our flood recovery, it's not funny. That was exact words, So I think if we can refer them to a document or some minutes like this, I think we'll go a long way to sorting them out. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Just in closing, I can't agree 100% with nothing's happened. There has been some good outcomes and stories, but there needs to be progress in the full recovery, and it needs to be done quicker. And communication also is a big problem that needs to be solved very soon, because there's people out there frustrated. They've put their life on hold, and I know one resident I was only talking to 3 days ago at Broadwater who had nothing back from the first rounds when it was back to home grants. There was also another program run where they'd come in and help you fix a room or two. They'd had no feedback, didn't know where they were up to. They thought they'd be just dropped out, and they took it on themselves to do a lot of their own work. And the other day they got a phone and said, "Oh, we'll be there tomorrow." And they'd already spent a real lot of money, of their own money, because they thought nothing was going to happen. And that's no communication. So now they'll be out of pocket. And I said, "Do you get any reimbursement?" "No, we don't." So, and the job's well over half finished. So they would have waited if they had known that. But so they just, and other people will put their life on hold, and then and won't do anything, and they may not get anything. So there needs to be more communication and more active progress, and that needs to occur very soon. But yeah, I think this document does let the community know what we have achieved, because, as I said, we have a very good story to tell.
That story you just told, I've heard that at least 5 different times around Woodburn, where they've got in and done their own work, fixed up their own houses, then all of a sudden they get a phone call, "We're coming tomorrow." To do what? It's done. Can we get reimbursed for what we've done if we've kept the reset? No.
Councillor Hayes, technically I've closed the debate because I spoke twice. Sorry. You'll get a chance in a minute. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Item 6 on page 8, Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting, June 20. Can I get a mover, please?
Moved.
Councillor Cornish, seconded.
Second.
Councillor Humphries. Accuracy of the minutes, does everyone agree with the accuracy?
Yeah, no, I've got a little issue that I've made Julie aware of. In item 7.1 and 7.2, there's a sentence in there that was supposed to have been pulled out, and it had been done, but it hasn't made it through to the ones printed in the business paper. There was a additional amended version come round not long after the meeting, and it's correct.
Sorry?
I said there's an additional amended version that come round after the last meeting, that is
Oh,
correct.
okay.
And Julie has them, so.
7.1.
Yep, 7.1, there's one of the sentences from 7.2 got tied up in 7.1, and, yeah,
Has that been...
yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. 6.2, minutes of the extraordinary meeting held 29th of June 23. A mover, please. Councillor
that, mate.
Humphries, second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Hayes. Any councillor have any concerns with the accuracy? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Matters arising out of the minutes. Page 10, item 7. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, just on 7.1, has there been any follow-up by the minister that was mentioned in there?
Mr. General Manager.
You're on, so 7.1 of the ordinary.
Yeah,
About the
That's
supermarket.
right.
We've received the letter. I think we forwarded that letter to say that there was no existing program that the supermarket would fit into.
Yeah,
Was there a,
I thought at the time that the mayor had brought up that there was something else in the wind, but we're waiting to hear.
Ms Hundy she attended the meeting last week with both
Yep.
ministers. So once again, her situation was discussed with them. But at this point,
Nothing more.
they are the visit last week. It was a listening tour, 0 commitments, and it was all about getting on the ground to understand what's needed, and that would be part of the government's reset, which we're obviously now waiting for. So Ms Hundy had the opportunity to outline her situation to both those ministers, and their staffers were there too that took notes. So no, there's no outcome. No.
That meeting the other day, I stood beside her, just to support her while she said what she had to say.
And 7.2, the Woodburn Riverside streetscape design. When the when the contract was issued, there was a time frame put out, and we were told that consultation with the public would be commencing in the upcoming weeks. Apparently that has changed, and Ben let me know today that it had changed. I'd already spoken to a few businesses around the place and a few residents to tell them to get ready. They were coming for consultation. Now it's not going to happen until September. So Ben might be able to fill us in on that if he can.
Yeah, so when we ran that request for quote process, it was sort of December and January, which is not an ideal time to do it. Staff member that was looking after that's moved on. Hence it took us a little bit longer than we would have liked to assess that request for quote. In the meantime, the company that we actually awarded it to thought they'd lost out on it because we hadn't got back to them, so it took us a while to engage them. I answered that question at the last meeting based on their quote submission, and last week they sent us an updated program, so it's September. Yeah.
Is that early September, month and a half?
I think it's actually got it late September.
Okay, 2 months.
Yeah.
Might be something that we can include in the next community newsletter, just to give people an update, and that there will be an opportunity for input in September.
Yep.
Any other items? Declaration of interest, item 8. General Manager, do you have any declarations?
Yes, I have received 3. So first one is from the Mayor in the matter items 14.1 and 15.1, which say non-pecuniary insignificant conflict, from Councillor McGillen, and item 14.1, non-pecuniary insignificant conflict, and from Director Gator, again item 14.1, and a non-pecuniary insignificant conflict. So the reason, the flood recovery updates, and each individual there has property in those areas, but these reports are quite general this evening on the whole progress of recovery. But obviously it's good to declare, even when there may not be a direct conflict, so that's what they're declared for.
Thank you. Petitions nil. 10, notice of motion. There's no notices. Page 11, item 11.1, mayoral attendances. I'll move that. Could I get a seconder, please?
Second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Any questions or discussion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. 23rd of June, Legacy Torch Relay. Seen a video of the torch relay around the public school area. There's a lot of kids and that sort of thing around. But was there many community following the torch or watching the torch?
Yes, there was. All through the town, when we got into the main CBD, a lot of business houses come out, but I actually had the pleasure of starting the walk with the president of Legacy, and we walked down to across the bridge, and then he passed it on, and it was the next relay change was around in front of the school, and all the school students from the primary school were there. As I said, when we went through the CBD, and then there was a lot around waiting for it to be delivered to the RSM club. So it was well represented, and it was very good. Then that evening I attended a celebration dinner at which is in the report at Ballina, and it was really good to see a lot of the different towns there interacting, and a lot of the elderly people who are cared for were out on the night, and they were having a really good time. It was great, really good.
Thank you. And the New South Wales Water Conference in Parks.
Sorry, I was just checking when you said the water. It was well attended at Parks. A long drive down, a long drive back. But it was some good outcomes. The General Manager and one of our water managers attended. Councillor Humphreys and I actually went for Rouse, but we all travelled in the same car. But one of the major concerns is staff. No one can get staff, and projects are getting behind because there's just a shortage of professionals in that industry. We've done an inspection of their water and wastewater plants. Very impressive. They have an area there where a lot of the wet weather release will go to. It's like it will be a big water area, and they attract wildlife, and they've got trees in there for fish to get under, and it's really good. But I believe the General Manager will supply a report in coming meetings. So it's up to him, because Councillor Humphreys and I were attending for Rouse, but if may have some input into that too.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other items on the Mayoral's report? Put that motion, and all those in favour? Carried. Page 12, on a 12.1, Delegates Report, Rouse County Council.
Move that.
Councillor Humphries, I'll second that. Any questions? Put that motion then, all those in favour? Carried. Page 17, item 13, matters determined without debate. Has any councillor got any items they'd like to discuss?
Yeah.
Councillor Hayes,
14.1 and 15.1.
14.1 and 15.1. Any other councillors? So I need a motion now for 17.1 and 17.2 to be adopted.
Move to spare.
Councillor Morrissey, seconder please.
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Put that motion, all those in favour? Carried. Go over to page 18, 14.1. Can I get a mover please?
Yeah, move.
Second.
I'm happy with the recommendation, first part of it. I think the second part, after getting the mayoral minute in this meeting, that we need to include something in there that shows that we were the first council to develop a comprehensive 3-year recovery plan, rebuilding the Richmond Valley for our community, just so that it's clear that we're on the ground and we're doing that from the word go. So I think that we can change that if I can get the seconder, that council acknowledges the ongoing efforts since the onset of the floods in February 22, when we produced a comprehensive 3-year recovery plan, rebuilding the Richmond Valley for our community, which we are now a year into implementing. So then go on. What? Listen. No, I didn't write it down. Oh. I just made it up. say by, not in. Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. Yep. And I apologise, I didn't write it down because I only read the supplementary mayoral minute when I got here, so.
Test on that.
What? Right, I need a second. Councillor Humphries.
Yes, thank you.
I didn't ask for one until we seen what
I did second.
seconded. Yeah,
And I agree with the amendment.
okay.
Yeah, thank
happy
you.
with that?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor?
So I'll speak to the amendment now. Look, I think it's important that we let everybody know that we did get out there and we did get on the ground and we did implement the, you know, this document, and we're still implementing it and following it through. So, you know, we're doing what we promised we'd do. So I think everyone needs to be aware of that, you know, especially any media coverage that suggests that we're not, well, we can show them that we are and refer them to that document.
Any other speakers?
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor,
Humphries.
I'd like to make comment that there's a number of aspects to the report, but following on from letting people know how Richmond Valley actually does tackle these kind of issues and has been from bushfires through to this very present day. The letter to Mr. Simon Draper, again, we're just telling him how it is. That, like, it's just, I've got here that it's really appalling that on the first page of the letter, halfway down, some 600 members of our community have been waiting for more than 7 months to learn the outcomes of this program, only to be told last week by automated notification process that the majority of them were unsuccessful, with no explanation as to why that might be. And so we've followed on, the General Manager's followed on the next page. Council believes unsuccessful applicants in the Resilient Homes program should urgently be provided with the following support. And it's got 3 dot points there, and I would like to read them because they're so incredibly important. They deserve a detailed explanation of why their application was unsuccessful, a clear explanation of the appeals process and the information required to support an appeal, noting that the current 30-day period in which to lodge an appeal isn't sufficient when people don't understand why their application has been rejected in the first place. They cannot lodge a meaningful appeal against the decision. And then thirdly, a clear explanation of the other support options and programs that may be available through the Reconstruction Authority or other New South Wales government assistance to continue with the restoration of their homes, with people still living in the rough. To go back to some of the points in the report, the rally, I like to read that. I like to see that the community were able to have some input, ask some questions, and I thank yourself and the General Manager and Councillor Hayes for being able to be there. I was really disappointed not to be able to be there to support. The visits from the ministers, I know how important it was for you to make sure that even though it was online, you were able to have some input into that process as well. Advocating, this is what Council has been doing from the get-go as well, advocating for everything we could possibly do. In this instance, advocating for more housing. And as we've said in the past, it's really important. That's great. We've got that one area at Ferry Hill being further investigated, but we need more. We need more places to put housing on flood-safe lands. And then turning the page, there's just all that information about how we need to get the funding, we need the money to be rolling in, we need to be able to continue with our recovery, but we need all these projects that we've got done. It's so good to see that we've got the money come through from Norton's Gap. Really wonderful to see the splash pad going in at Coraki, but there's these projects throughout the Richmond Valley that we need to just keep our eye on the ball and keep driving these home as well. So thanks very much for that progress report. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, any other speakers? Councillor Deegan?
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying I agree with the comments of Councillor Hayes and Councillor Humphreys, and really add that following the floods, I think Richmond Valley did often lead the way, was ahead of other councils in the implementation of recovery plans, but did it quietly and methodically, whereas a number of other councils were very good at getting media attention. The focus of Richmond Valley Council was really just on recovery, getting things happening, and maybe in the future we do need to focus more on media attention, because there are some questions from some people. Why is this council doing all of these things when they're not hearing about what Richmond Valley Council's doing? My preference is to just get on with the job, but maybe it is an important step to make sure that the community is fully aware of all of the information along the way.
Any other speakers? I'll just speak on it. When the fires occurred, this was the what we followed, this line of get on with the job. Our community comes first, and we've achieved some great outcomes for our community, especially the Rappville area, and down the lower river, around the New Italy. With the floods, this is a bigger scale, but we took the same approach because I believe it's better working with a government than out there having a go at them all the time. And we had a very good relationship with the previous government, taking that tact. We got some good outcomes, and I think that's why these letters to our relevant ministers now and the Premier is to let them know that we're here to work with them. We're not here to beat our chest in front of a TV. We're here to say to them, you work with us, we've got all these plans, we can achieve some great outcomes for our community. And that's what I think it's all about. And when you look at the previous dot points of the projects that we have happening, and a lot of it's through flood funding, these people's lives, if you go to that rally, and Councillor Hayes was there, and General Manager myself, and you see these people, they're very emotional. And flood recovery has to be the number one issue for this council, to get our community back into their homes, get them back into some sort of life, normality that they had before. We've got children, their schools are gone, and they're travelling different places. Their schools may not be open for, we'll take the Broadwater, it might be open for years. They're talking about St Joey's at Woodburn not coming back. You know, these people's lives are just turned upside down, and that needs to be our number one priority. And getting the people who live out North Casino and work in Lismore every day, they're travelling extra miles on a road that's not designed for that, was never structured for that. We've tried to make it as safe as we can. And it's just the inconvenience these people day-to-day lives. And I could go on for, as you know, for a long, long time. But it's even the people that were at Pickapeen when the land slipped. Those people on the other side to get to Rappville, and they own farms on the other side of the range at Rappville, they had an hour and a half trip to get where it used to be like 20 minutes. And they put up with that, but I believe the Pickapeen is now open and operational. So, you know, it's the smaller communities to the large communities. You drive through Casino here in some areas and you can look through the houses and still see the studs like you can see down at Corrikai, Woodburn, and the farmers and the Bunga Walbin levy. You know, like, they are the things that this council needs to be focused on. You know, we can't be sidetracked from that. Number one priority, to get our community back where they need to be. Councillor Hayes. Any other councillors? Councillor Hayes, right, a reply.
Yeah, just to close. Look, early on tonight in your mayoral minute, I said that I wasn't happy with what the government had done nothing, and you corrected me and said that you were happy that they were doing something. And look, I agree. I didn't mean they were doing nothing, but they seem to be doing very little in the lower river areas, and that's what come there. that rally on Saturday showed those ministers that the community feels that there's nothing happening down our way and we want it changed. And whether it's consequence or not, but coincidence or not, they've turned up a couple of days later, visited the area, and we just hope some good comes out of that. So we need to follow that up, I think. So, thank you.
That ends the debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Councillors, and we now move to page 36, item 19.1. For matters for information, could I get a mover, please? Sorry? 15.1, I'm sorry. My apologies. Yep, page 24. Flood study, stormwater study and inflow infiltration strategy update. I've got a mover, please. Councillor Hayes, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Sorry about that, councillors, I got a bit emotional over that. Councillor Hayes.
I don't want to change the recommendation this time, Julie, so you...
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. The flood study, okay, the draft Richmond Valley Flood Study 23 report is out on exhibition. We've already had this flood mapping put out by the Reconstruction Commission. So how do they line up those two studies? Like, they must have had a study to get their maps out, and how could they bring those maps out and then we've got a study coming along later that could be completely different? Is there any like cohesion between the two, or is it just the way it's going to be? And because I'll just keep speaking, the velocities and the flood storage areas, as they call them now, and the depths, and you know who qualifies for what was decided on flood mapping that we're still bringing to the table, the way I see it.
No. Look, I can't be definitive that, but I know that I was on a briefing where the company that was doing the flood mapping for the Reconstruction Corporation certainly had an awareness of our work and what we'd done, and the company that we were using. So, as I can't be definitive, but the inference I took was that they'd certainly had some conversations. Whether they were sharing information, I'd have to ask that question of our guys. So certainly an awareness. I mean, it's a fair question. You know, we've just gone through and done the most comprehensive flood modelling the Richmond Valley's ever had done, and we've now tested the model, because the model was basically done the week before the floods. And the reason why we're now consulting on it is because we had to go back and recalibrate and test, and the outcomes of that have shown that the model was very accurate. The consequence now is that flood levels are higher because they work it off average floods, and obviously when you have an outlier, it changes your average a bit. So our floor levels as a result in some areas will increase. Yeah, I mean, it's great to have this study now done. Obviously there's opportunity for people to review that and see what it means for their property and their place. Encourage people to do that, but I'd have to come back to you on that question of how those two, well, how the maps actually compare or correlate, which I'm happy to do.
So just a comment. So if those maps are different, they base their decisions on refusing people a house lift or a buyback based on what they've got. If our mapping shows it's different, and they've got an avenue to go back and put in a submission to change, to find out why they missed out, will they be able to use that?
Again, I can't speak for the Reconstruction Corporation, but it would, the appeals process is there, and it's obviously a good source of comparable information. So if people feel that our flood modelling shows a different outcome, it would be a good piece of evidence to put into an appeal. I can report that we were advised in the last day or two that appeal process has been extended to a 90-day period. I think when this report was written, it said, or that letter that we wrote said that the 30 days wasn't long enough. So the government has listened, and it is now a 90-day period. So if people are intending to lodge an appeal. I'm sure they're looking at all sorts of different information, but our flood study is certainly, a very credible piece of work, so they may want to have a look at what it shows for their place.
Okay, so for the normal household to be able to do that, it's probably going to be impossible. Is there a way that council can force this this new mapping and new information to the Reconstruction Commission to include when they reassess? And that's if they're going to reassess. Like we've got to put it out there so that they've got access to it and that they actually know that it's different.
Where we can have a conversation with those who are doing it, and we're obviously in regular liaison with the Reconstruction Corporation, who are now within the Reconstruction Authority. So I'm happy to have a conversation with them and just come back to you on what the options are.
Councillor Cornish, seconder. Any other councillors?
Yeah, just hang on before I finish. I've got a question further on the inflow and infiltration strategy. I'm just wondering if there's swimming pools been taken into consideration with the load on the sewer and their backwashing. Has that been done in all the calculations when we've come up with this? Well, will it be included? At present, we put backwash swimming pools straight into the sewer. It's a lot of water. I'm just wondering if it's being considered, that's all.
Surely you wouldn't be doing it when the flood's on, but...
That's when you do it. Flood fills up, you backwash your pool because it's overflowing.
You talking generally about swimming pools?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know specific.
I think that it add a lot of water to the sewage plant when it probably doesn't need to go there.
But I think it has to go to, I think the public health requirements are that it has to. And yeah, obviously when you have heavy rainfall continuously, people want to empty their pools so it doesn't overflow. So yeah, it's another factor. I think it's a fair point. There's a lot of those sorts of situations where, and that's, it's like when someone's backyard starts to get inundated and you've got your outdoor gully trap. We were talking about that earlier today. There's all those things that just lead to so much more water ending up at our sewage treatment plant than it can actually effectively handle. It can handle it, but obviously it doesn't treat it very well because there's too much of it in a short space of time. But that's the challenge we got with inflow and infiltration. It's a big shift, but a lot of this work and the stormwater, stormwater, as we all know, a lot of people are concerned about the stormwater inundation when we get flash floods. So a lot of this work is now in the next phase of, well, we know where it happens. Are there engineering solutions to ease the pressure and extend the rainfall event before someone's property does get inundated? And some of these engineering solutions, as it says in the report, are going to be high cost items. But we've certainly, as we all know, we get a lot of feedback from the community, particularly the flash flood events in Casino, but also in Evans Head. We're not far off starting the Illawong Lane drainage project, so we've got to chip away at it. But I suppose the message is these are high cost solutions, and we're probably not going to be able to cater for all the storm events that we cop on the northern rivers.
I'll just make a comment about the flash flooding in Casino. The main drain was open years ago, then it was made into a big box culvert. In those days there was a lot of empty allotments around Collie Park. They've all been filled in and a lot of filling went there, and also once you do that you get a lot more runoff from roofs, driveways, and I'd say that the box culvert now cannot take the water like it used to because of that. And in saying that, nothing would have stopped that last flood. That was just the river was higher and came back. But in the flash flooding, as the General Manager said, we have done a plan, and it's the first major plan that's been done for the catchment in the main drain area. And it takes in a real lot of area. people may not realise, but the water from around the Cecil Hotel roundabout actually goes north away from the river and joins another drain that comes from up near the hospital and then out what we call Loco area, and runs, they all join in behind on near Pratt Street, and then it goes down under some buildings and out through what we call the Butterfactory pipe and down lower part of Casino. So it followed the drain followed the lowest part of Casino, and it's all been built around now. So hopefully there are some engineering solutions that can be found to alleviate that, because we're getting inundations now into houses in flash flooding that we've never had before. But I think that it's a great outcome for this council to be the first one that's really addressed this and done some hard work on looking for alternative solutions to drain that lower area. Any other speakers?
I've got a question, please. With regards to the inflow and the infiltration strategy, on page 26, it talks about going out into the field and undertaking investigations, and it says they're repairing easy to rectify defects and then reviewing the remaining for asset renewal and future upgrades. What sort of percentage fits into work that we can be doing sooner rather than waiting for those funds that are going to be quite difficult to secure? Much that'll make a difference in the early
Director
period of
Jones.
time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Things like that we have control over, like our manholes. So, they need to be sealed correctly. So we've got a fair idea of what we need to do. Again, going and replacing those manholes and making sure that they are, not susceptible for inflow is there as a cost to that. But we do have a program and we do have a small budget to do that work. So we'll do as much as we can for the dollars that we have. But to solve all those larger problems, yes, there's significant investment that would be required. But we do have some funding to do those easy wins that we know about.
Thank you.
Just adding to that, I think there's a DPE program where we've got some support. Is that around inflow and infiltration? Sorry? Oh, so it's water leakage, so yeah. So there's a number of programs out there. So yeah, so there's a water leakage program that the Department of Planning and Environment and their water section are supporting us with. So there will be people up in this area with that. So yeah, there's a whole range of programs, and as you see in this report, we have to do something about this because there's a variation on our environmental. So we've got a requirement around pollution reduction program to address I&I. So it's we don't have a choice. We've got to do something about it.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes, right, a reply?
Good to go.
Put that motion in. All those in favour? Unanimous? Carried. Now we will move to page 36, item 19, matters for information. Could I get a mover, please?
Moves me.
Councillor Morrissey, seconder.
Second.
Councillor McGillan, is that you? Humphreys, sorry. Any items, Councillor Morrissey?
One, Mr. Mayor, please. In the grants. Grants approved, the first one, or the only one. Date approved is the 16th of June and application submitted 16th of June. And then on the last page of the grants, grant applications submitted was the same one. Does that happen very often? That the day they're submitted, they get approved?
So the first one, I think,
Sorry,
is...
am I reading that right?
Yeah, no, you're correct. I think the first one's an allocation from Civic Risk Mutual, who are our insurer. So as part of encouraging us to reduce our risk. So I'm guessing that we put through an application as part of a process with them that basically it's submitted, this is what we're doing, and they've approved it the same day. What was the second one? That was. Yeah. Yeah, it's an annual allocation, so it's a program they run, which is why it's just got the 2 dates. There's an allocation, we submit an application saying here's what we're doing, and as long as it complies with that guidelines, they issue the approval.
Thank you.
Any other councillors like to ask a question on item 19? No, I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. We now go to page 59. Item 20, questions on notice nil, and 21 questions for next meeting in writing. Has any councillors got any questions in writing? Move over to page 22. And I need a recommendation to go into closed council.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey,
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Is there any representation from the gallery why council should not go into closed session? Do we need a written representation, Mr General Manager?
Nothing received.
I'll put that motion and all those in favour. And I thank the gallery for your attendance. Have a safe trip home. We shouldn't be long if you want to wait, and we'll read the resolution from closed council. Manager, could you read the resolutions of closed council, please, or organise someone to?
Yeah, Director Gator can cover those.
Thank you, Director Gator.
Through you, Mr Mayor. In the report 22.1 VP 362381 cleaning contract, Council accepts the tender from Cleanways for the cleaning of council offices and buildings for a 3-year period with optional extensions that represents best value for money at an annual price of $341,857 excluding GST. And 2, authorises the General Manager to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement in line with the content of this report and the available budget, and affixes the seal of Council where necessary. In Report 22.2 VP 362383 Security Contract, Council resolved to 1, accept the tender from Hearn Security for provision of security patrols and related services for a 3-year period with optional extensions, as it represents the best value for money at a monetary price of $24,612, excluding monthly price, I should say, of $24,612 excluding GST. And number 2, authorises the General Manager to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement in line with the content of this report and the available budget, and the affixing of Council's seal where necessary.
Thank you. That closes the meeting. Thanks for your attendance, and like everyone, have a safe trip home, please, those that are driving a long distance.